Mazi Okeke was known far and wide in Aba for his deep knowledge of herbs and his strong belief in traditional ways. He was a respected elder in the community, and people often came to him seeking cures for ailments that no modern medicine seemed to heal. With his long white beard, wise gaze and steady hands, Mazi Okeke was the true image of a healer. When he mixed herbs, chanted and performed rituals, even the most doubtful villagers felt a sense of peace. But not everyone believed in these practices, and Mazi Okeke knew that some of the younger people, influenced by education and foreign ways, questioned their old ways. Hello everyone, my name is Adugo, and you're watching the African Tales channel with Adugo. Before we dive into today's video, please kindly click on that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you'll be notified whenever I upload a new video. Now, let's get into the story. Then came the day when the peace of the community was shaken. A young man named Chiemeka, who had traveled abroad for many years, returned to the village. Chiemeka was smart, confident, and full of new ideas. People had heard he went to some of the best schools abroad, and there was no doubt that he was well educated. But something in his attitude worried the villagers, especially the elders. Chiemeka spoke loudly against many things that Mazi Okeke and the other elders held sacred. He called the use of herbs backward and accused the villagers of clinging to fetish beliefs. His words sent shockwaves through the small community, and some young people even started to agree with him. One day, Chiemeka gathered a few villagers by the town square. "These practices are holding us back," he declared. "We need to embrace modern ideas and let go of these strange customs." Some villagers listened with nodding heads, and Mazi Okeke could feel the hold of tradition slipping. Mazi Okeke knew he had to act. He called a secret meeting with the other elders that night. In low, serious voices, they discussed how Chiemeka's challenge could tear the community apart. Some elders believed that if Chiemeka continued this way, the younger generation would completely abandon their roots. That night, under the light of a full moon, Mazi Okeke and the elders gathered in a hidden part of the forest, far from where anyone could disturb them. There was a heavy silence, and the air was thick with the smell of herbs and wood smoke. Each elder held something symbolic in their hands: a piece of kola nut, a leaf from the sacred tree, or a piece of one stone tied to their family line. These items had deep meaning, connecting each elder to the power of the ancestors. "We must teach Chiemeka a lesson he will never forget," Mazi Okeke said quietly. The elders nodded, each looking determined. They were not planning harm. They simply wanted to remind Chiemeka of the value in their customs, to help him see beyond his new ideas. With hands raised to the sky, Mazi Okeke chanted ancient words, calling upon the spirits of the land, the ancestors who watched over their people. He mixed special herbs in a small pot, a blend known to give visions to those who were touched by it. The smoke from the herbs spiraled into the night air, filling the forest with a strange glow. The elders chanted with him, their voices rising and falling like a hidden drumbeat, calling forth the energy of the earth. As dawn approached, they finished the ritual, each elder placing their piece of kola nut in the pot, sealing their intent. "May he remember," Mazi Okeke whispered, his voice full of hope and power. The next day, as the sun rose over Aba, Chiemeka felt a strange unease. At first, he dismissed it as nothing. But then, as he walked through the village square, a heavy dizziness overtook him. The colors around him began to blur, and sounds grew distant. People stared as Chiemeka stumbled, clutching his head, feeling a sudden pull, like he was being drawn somewhere beyond his control. In his vision, Chiemeka found himself back in the village, but it was not the Aba he knew. He saw the village as it might have looked hundreds of years ago, with elders and children dressed in ancient clothing, their eyes glowing with wisdom. He saw healers like Mazi Okeke mixing herbs by a river, watched as they saved lives, healed wounds, and brought peace with the same herbs he had called backward. He saw families thankful, children healthy, and communities thriving. As Chiemeka wandered through his vision, he felt a wave of emotions. A mixture of wonder, confusion, and respect filled his heart. These people knew secrets of nature and wisdom that stretched back to times he hadn't imagined. Chiemeka realized that, while his education had given him great knowledge, there was still something powerful and sacred in these traditions. When he awoke from the vision, he found himself kneeling on the village soil. People were gathered around, whispering with concern, but none dared approach him. Mazi Okeke stepped forward, his expression calm but knowing. "Chiemeka," he said softly, "you have now seen what our people see. The roots of this land run deep, and they do not die easily. Our traditions carry the spirit of our ancestors." Chiemeka looked up, his eyes wide, and for the first time, he felt a respect he had never known. He wanted to speak, but found himself at a loss for words. Chiemeka's heart pounded as he looked up at Mazi Okeke. There was a strange calm in the elder's eyes, a deep understanding that Chiemeka suddenly felt humbled by. For a moment, Chiemeka was silent, trying to gather his thoughts. Finally, he managed to speak, his voice shaky. I didn't know, Mazi Okeke. I thought these were just stories, old habits that had no place in today's world." Mazi Okeke nodded slowly. "It is easy to think that way when you have seen only one side of the world. Knowledge is like a tree, Chiemeka. The branches may grow high and wide, but they are only strong because of their roots. Without roots, the tree falls." The people gathered around murmured in agreement, their faces softened by understanding. Even the young ones, who had once listened to Chiemeka's criticisms, seemed thoughtful. Chiemeka could feel the weight of their gazes, not as judgment but as an invitation to see the world through the lens of his ancestors, not as mere superstition, but as a foundation of wisdom. Mazi Okeke gestured towards a small clay pot that he had brought with him. Inside, there was a mixture of herbs, leaves and roots that Chiemeka recognized from the forest. "These plants," Mazi Okeke said, "are the gift of this land. With the right knowledge, they bring healing, peace and protection. This is our heritage, passed down from generation to generation." He handed the pot to Chiemeka, who took it carefully, feeling the warmth from the clay. It was as if the pot held not just herbs but the weight of history itself. In that moment, Chiemeka felt the stirrings of a newfound respect. He thought of all the nights he had studied books, his mind filled with ideas and theories from across the world. Yet here, in this village, was a knowledge that couldn't be found in any book. A wisdom born from years of careful observation, love and survival. As the villagers looked on, Chiemeka took a deep breath. "I want to learn, Mazi Okeke. I want to understand the ways of my people as they truly are." Mazi Okeke's face softened and a slight smile tugged at his lips. "Then let the spirit of our ancestors guide you, my son. Knowledge is not to be taken lightly. It must be learned with humility, respect, and patience." From that day on, Chiemeka's journey in the village took a new path. No longer did he criticize or question in the same sharp way. Instead, He became Mazi Okeke's shadow, watching as the elder mixed herbs, healed villagers, and conducted rituals that had been practiced for generations. It wasn't easy. There were times when Chiemeka felt a surge of doubt, especially when he remembered his modern training. But each time, Mazi Okeke reminded him to keep an open heart and mind. Months passed, and slowly Chiemeka began to see the delicate balance between the old and the new. He realized that his education didn't have to clash with his heritage. Instead, it could strengthen it, helping him understand his roots in a way that connected him both to his village and to the world beyond. One evening, as they sat by a fire under a star-filled sky, Chiemeka looked at Mazi Okeke with gratitude. "You've taught me so much, Mazi. I only wish I had understood sooner." Mazi Okeke nodded, his eyes twinkling with wisdom. "The journey begins when it's meant to, Chiemeka. Now that you have seen with both the eyes of the world and the eyes of our people, you can walk your path with true understanding." But just as things seemed to settle, rumors began to spread in the village. Whispers of a strange sickness moving through nearby towns, an illness that even modern doctors struggled to cure. The villagers grew anxious, and Chiemeka felt a tug of fear as he realized that his newfound knowledge would soon be put to the test. Mazi Okeke and Chiemeka exchanged a solemn glance. The elder's face was calm, but there was a tension in his gaze, a silent message that Chiemeka understood. As the whispers of the strange illness spread, the village grew tense. People huddled in small groups, their faces etched with worry as they recounted tales of friends and relatives in nearby villages who had fallen ill with high fevers, weakness, and a strange rash. Even the young ones who usually laughed and played in the fields stayed close to their families, sensing the fear that hovered over the village like a dark cloud. Chiemeka felt the weight of his responsibility grow heavier. He had studied medicine abroad, and he knew that some illnesses were beyond the reach of traditional herbs. But he also knew, after his time with Mazi Okeke, that sometimes nature held secrets that modern knowledge couldn't grasp. He wondered if there might be a way to combine the strengths of both. One evening, Chiemeka approached Mazi Okeke, who was seated by the fire, preparing a mix of herbs as he chanted softly under his breath. The glow of the flames lit up Mazi's weathered face, making him look both wise and wary. "Mazi," Chiemeka began, his voice low, "this illness, I fear it may be stronger than anything we faced. The herbs alone might not be enough." Mazi Okeke looked up at him, his eyes sharp and understanding. "I have sensed this too, my son. But our people are afraid, and fear can cloud the mind. They need to know that we have not abandoned them." Chiemeka nodded, understanding the elder's words. In times of crisis, tradition gave people comfort and strength, even when solutions were hard to find. But he was determined to try everything he knew, both old and new, to protect his people. "We must work together, Mazi," he said firmly. "I know of some medicines from my studies that might help, but I also need the guidance of the herbs you know. Perhaps, by combining them, we can create something powerful enough to fight this illness." Mazi Okeke's eyes shone with a quiet pride as he nodded. "It is as I hoped, Chiemeka. You have learned to respect the wisdom of the ancestors, but you also bring new knowledge to strengthen it. Let us begin." Over the next few days, Mazi Okeke and Chiemeka worked tirelessly together, mixing herbs and modern medicines in careful proportions. The process was delicate as some herbs reacted strongly with certain medicines, but together they found combinations that seemed promising. Word spread quickly through the village that Mazi Okeke and Chiemeka were preparing a remedy for the illness. Hope sparked among the villagers, and they began to bring offerings of food, water and prayers, asking for protection and healing. Some of the elders who had been wary of Chiemeka's return now looked at him with new respect, realizing that his knowledge could indeed be a gift to the community. Finally, the remedy was ready. Mazi Okeke gathered the villagers in the square and held up the mixture in a small wooden bowl, speaking in a voice that carried over the crowd. Our ancestors have blessed this land with wisdom and healing. With the help of Chiemeka, who has brought new knowledge from far away, we now have a medicine that we believe can fight this illness. One by one, villagers approached and took a small dose of the remedy. Those who had fallen ill were treated with both the herbal mixture and some medicines that Chiemeka provided. For days, the villagers watched and waited, holding their breath and praying for recovery. At first, nothing happened. Chiemeka's heart sank as he began to fear that their efforts might not be enough. But then, slowly, signs of improvement began to show. The fever started to fade and the rashes began to clear. Families celebrated as their loved ones regained strength, and children once again filled the fields with laughter. The village erupted with joy and relief. The people came together, offering thanks to Mazi Okeke and Chiemeka, praising them for their courage and wisdom. It was a victory not just for the village but for the unity between tradition and modernity. Mazi Okeke turned to Chiemeka with a gentle smile. "You have proven yourself, Chiemeka. You have shown that knowledge is strongest when shared and used wisely." Chiemeka felt a surge of pride and gratitude. "Thank you, Mazi. I owe so much to you and the wisdom of our people." But just as the village began to settle back into peace, a strange visitor arrived. A man from a distant town claiming to be in search of a powerful healer. He had heard of the village's success against the illness and wanted to learn their methods. The villagers welcomed him warmly, but Chiemeka couldn't shake a feeling of unease as he watched the stranger. There was something in the man's eyes, a hunger, a curiosity that seemed almost too intense. As the man lingered, observing their methods and asking questions, Chiemeka began to wonder, was he here to learn or to take? The stranger, who introduced himself as Dr. Okon, was polite, always smiling and nodding as he listened to the villagers. But Chiemeka noticed how his questions dug deeper each time, asking about specific herbs, the exact amounts Mazi Okeke used, even the ancient chants they whispered as they prepared remedies. At first, the villagers didn't mind sharing. After all, it was good news that their traditions could help others. But over time, Chiemeka sensed a subtle change in the man's tone. He spoke less with respect and more with impatience, almost as though he believed he knew better. One afternoon, Dr. Okon approached Chiemeka as he was gathering herbs near the forest. "You know, Chiemeka," he said, "with your education and my resources, we could turn these traditional remedies into something big. Think of all the people we could reach and the money we could make. Imagine these herbs in every hospital and pharmacy, with our names on them." Chiemeka paused, unsettled by Dr. Okon's words. He had returned to his village not to make money, but to reconnect with his roots and help his people. He knew the elders would never agree to their herbs being taken out of the village and commercialized. These plants were sacred, tied to their history and the spirits of their ancestors. "I appreciate the thought, Dr. Okon," Chiemeka replied carefully. "But these remedies are not just about ingredients. They are part of who we are. Our people don't see them as a product to be sold." Dr. Okon chuckled, brushing off Chiemeka's words. "Ah, but that's the beauty of progress, my friend. We bring the old ways into the new world. Think about it." With a pat on Chiemeka's shoulder, he walked back towards the village, leaving Chiemeka feeling deeply uneasy. That evening, Chiemeka shared his concerns with Mazi Okeke. who listened in silence, his face growing darker with each word. When Chiemeka finished, Mazi Okeke let out a long sigh. Some people see only with their eyes, Chiemeka. They do not see with the heart, and so they cannot understand. The next day, Mazi Okeke and the other elders held a private meeting with Dr. Okon. They spoke politely but firmly, explaining that while they were willing to share some knowledge, the deeper practices of their tradition were not meant for outsiders. Dr. Okon nodded, smiling as though he understood. But as he left, Chiemeka caught a glimpse of something in his eyes, a spark of anger or perhaps frustration. That night, strange things began to happen. Pots of herbs carefully stored by the villagers mysteriously disappeared. A sacred tree near the forest was found with branches broken, as if someone had tried to take pieces of it. People began to whisper, casting suspicious glances towards Dr. Okon, who seemed to be wandering the village at odd hours. Chiemeka felt his suspicion grow. He tried to follow Dr. Okon discreetly, hoping to catch him in the act. But the man was surprisingly swift, slipping into the shadows whenever he sensed someone nearby. The villagers grew uneasy, and Chiemeka knew that something had to be done before the stranger disrupted the delicate balance they had worked so hard to restore. Late one night, as the village slept, Chiemeka heard a faint rustling outside his hut. He rose quietly and stepped out, his heart pounding as he saw a shadow moving towards the sacred herb garden near Mazi Okeke's compound. Without hesitation, he followed the figure, creeping closer until he saw Dr. Okon kneeling by the plants, gathering handfuls of herbs and muttering to himself. Dr. Okon, Chiemeka's voice cut through the silence like a sharp blade. The man froze, his hand full of leaves, before slowly turning to face Chiemeka, his face a mix of surprise and defiance. "What are you doing?" Chiemeka demanded, trying to keep his voice steady. Dr. Okon straightened, his smile cold and unyielding. "I am doing what you should be doing, Chiemeka, taking these resources and putting them to good use, instead of letting them rot in this village." "Rot?" Chiemeka's anger fled. "These plants are sacred. They belong to our people, not to outsiders who only see them as tools." Dr. Okon sneered. "You are wasting potential, Chiemeka. You've been blinded by superstition, just like the elders." He took a step forward, clutching the herbs tightly. "I won't leave empty-handed." Just then, Mazi Okeke appeared, his presence as silent and powerful as the night itself. Behind him were other villagers who had heard the commotion, their faces hardened with anger. Mazi Okeke stepped forward, his gaze sharp and unwavering as he looked at Dr. Okon. "Leave this village, Dr. Okon," Mazi Okeke said in a voice that echoed with authority. "Our knowledge is not for sale, and our heritage is not to be stolen." For a moment, Dr. Okon's bravado faded, his face paling as he looked around at the villagers who had gathered, their eyes full of determination. Without another word, he dropped the herbs and turned, disappearing into the darkness, his footsteps fading into the distance. As dawn broke, Chiemeka felt a renewed sense of purpose and pride. He looked at Mazi Okeke, who placed a hand on his shoulder. "You have protected your people, Chiemeka, and now you understand what it truly means to guide our heritage." The village resumed its peaceful life, but Chiemeka knew that challenges would continue to come. With his newfound wisdom and respect for both worlds, he felt ready to face them, carrying forward the spirit of his ancestors and the lessons of Mazi Okeke. The days following Dr. Okon's departure were filled with quiet relief and a sense of pride among the villagers. Life returned to its peaceful rhythm, and Chiemeka continued to learn from Mazi Okeke. His respect for the elders and the traditions of his people deepened. He had come back to the village with a heart full of ambition to change things, and he had grown to see the value in protecting what already existed. One evening, as the sun set over the hills, painting the sky with hues of orange and purple, Chiemeka and Mazi Okeke sat by the river. The elder dipped his hand in the water, letting it ripple across the surface. "Chiemeka," he began, his voice gentle, "you have seen how our traditions are like this river. They are ancient, flowing through generations, nourishing us and keeping us strong. But like all rivers, they must be respected. Take too much from them or try to change their course, and the whole land suffers." Chiemeka nodded, feeling the truth of Mazi Okeke's words. He had tried to reshape the village's belief with his knowledge from abroad, but he now understood that real wisdom was about balance, honoring the old while embracing the new with respect. Just as they rose to leave, a group of young boys approached, holding small clay pots filled with herbs. One of them stepped forward, his eyes bright with excitement. "Please, Mazi Okeke," he said, "teach us too. We want to learn the ways of our ancestors." Mazi Okeke looked at Chiemeka, a smile on his face. "It is time, my son. The journey of wisdom begins with teaching others." Chiemeka felt a swell of pride as he stepped forward to guide the boys. He taught them as Mazi Okeke had taught him, with patience and care, showing them how to blend herbs, the importance of each plant, and the value of respect for the earth and the wisdom of their elders. As the days passed, Chiemeka became a bridge between the past and the future, teaching the younger generation not just the practical uses of herbs, but also the heart and soul of their traditions. Moral lessons. 1. Respect for tradition. The story reminds us of the importance of respecting and preserving the traditions and heritage of our ancestors. While progress is essential, it should not come at the cost of our cultural roots. 2. Balance between old and new. True wisdom lies in balancing modern knowledge with ancestral wisdom. Both have their strengths, and together they can create a more harmonious way of life. 3. Greed and selfishness have consequences. Dr. Okon's desire to exploit the village's sacred knowledge for profit led to his alienation. Selfishness and greed ultimately harm rather than help communities. 4. The power of humility. Chiemeka's journey teaches us that humility opens the door to learning. When he let go of his pride and embraced his people's ways, he found a deeper understanding and respect for his culture. 5. Passing on wisdom. Knowledge is a gift meant to be shared. The story shows the value of teaching and guiding the next generation, who will continue to carry the legacy of the past into the future. In the end, Chiemeka had learned that true strength came from honoring both the wisdom of the ancestors and the new knowledge he had acquired. And with this understanding, he helped guide his village towards a future where both tradition and progress could thrive together. We have come to the end of the story. If you love this video, please kindly share with your loved ones. Leave us a comment on your opinion